I can't help it, Brandon. Everything's funny to me. Welcome to the Griffon Show, laughing my way. I wish I was laughing my way all the way to the bank like my next guest, but I can't do that. Anyway, great to have you with us. It is Monday, best day of the work week. Better than Brandon's. Brandon, by the way, you better talk to me about payday on Thursday because I won't be here on Friday. So
okay.
I'm just letting you know that.
Right.
If you forget, it's on your phone. I ought to call your wife.
I won't forget.
Your wife would remind you really, really quick.
No, I will not forget.
All right, folks, great to have you with us. 844-766-6607. Hickson has it. Hotline. Brett Geymann joined me, former rep, of course, small business owner, and like I said, loaded up. Brett, how you doing, bud?
Yeah, you have me mistaken with somebody. I don't know who that is.
It's funny. I thought me and Brett talk periodically, and sometimes it's late on a Friday or something. I'd call him and he'd go, "Can't talk to you right now. I'm still working. I'm trying to pay all these taxes." No, seriously. I'm saying that credit to you as a small business guy, you and your bride, and y'all out there busting your fannies, and you're going, "Yeah, I'm still." But the average person may not know that if you own a business.
Yeah, you're right. We're just working to pay our health insurance premiums, Moon. That's about it.
You know, me and you have just about the same health deal. Matter of fact, you help me. I tell people a lot of times. Brett's the one helped me figure out what to do with mine. And Brett, I want to thank you for that $2,000 premium. My God, a month.
Thanks for nothing, huh?
Well, this is the deal. If I listen to you, I only have to pay $25,000 a year, thanks to Barack Obama. If I don't listen to you, I got to pay $4,100. So yeah,
exactly.
I'm surprised you didn't say, "Look, just make it $3,000, send me $1,000. I still save you $1,000 a month."
Hey, speaking of money, I want to clear a couple things up.
Go ahead.
Now that I'm on the air with you, I want to clear a couple things up. Two things. Number one, Brandon needs a raise.
Oh, my God.
Thank you, sir.
Now, hold on. I've got the floor. Let me finish.
And you're going to be finished, all right.
Brandon needs a raise because he does such a fantastic job in your absence. The music is way better that he plays at the commercial break. In fact, we did a whole segment on just music. And people enjoy that. He does a good job. You can't make it without him. So whatever he's making, he needs a 10% raise, I think, starting this Friday.
Brandon.
The second thing is when you leave and you ask somebody to fill in for you as a favor, you should at least leave some money for us to buy lunch.
Y'all could have went to Shucks. That's his fault. He could have took you to Shucks.
We asked several times. Did Moon leave us a coupon or anything to go eat lunch? No, he didn't.
I bet y'all did. I got a feeling y'all did. And number one, Brandon, after the show, you're fired. And number two, Brett, you're done too as a complimentary talk show host or a guest. So I'll just put you over there. I'll just move you to the side and we'll be done with you. See how easy that was? Fix the problem. Brett Geymann, my special guest. Brett, thanks for calling. You know, Brett, you and me were, I'm not going to say we're the only ones, but we were against the Constitutional Convention. Still am. And I think today points out why. I couldn't believe the article. Actually, you sent it to me. I printed it and read it. This was the view of the Advocate. Our views. Majority rules? ? Not so much in Louisiana, thanks to a 2/3 requirement on taxes and fees. And that's the point that I've been making. I think you've made it many times yourself, that I think the Constitutional Convention is to get rid of this 2/3 vote, because all they talk about basically is how they could have did even more, took more money from us if they didn't have a 2/3 vote. And they say, well, a session costs 1.5 and all these sessions. Hey, if the sessions cost $4 million, we save billions of dollars from not being able to raise so much taxes, because Edwards would have raised the income taxes. We had all the Democrats and enough Republicans. They would have raised the road taxes. They'd have raised every tax known to mankind. Just your thoughts on that.
I think it's one of the biggest concerns for me and you as well, is that fact that we could lose the 2/3 vote requirement for those significant pieces of policy changes, such as raising your taxes. I think that should be difficult to do, and it should be a consensus among the legislators, both parties, in order to do that. And without that barrier, you're absolutely right. We don't have enough conservatives in the legislature, probably never will, to hold a majority down from passing taxes without a 2/3 vote, which makes it much, much more difficult. And I have feared from the beginning of one of the dangers of going into a constitutional convention is that we would lose that 2/3 barrier, because many people have talked about it. We have some legislators wanting fiscal sessions every year instead of every other year, so it's easier to raise revenue. It's always about chasing revenue, Moon, and that's what concerns me. Many of the things that the folks who are for a convention want to change, I absolutely agree with them, 100% agree with them. I have fought for budget reform when I was a legislator, and I would like to see that done. But I am afraid that what will ultimately happen is what you're talking about today, and that is we lose the 2/3 barrier as a compromise in order to pass some other things that the business community would be for, and that scares the heck out of me.
Yeah, one of the things he says, they say in this article, but we do see one bad effect from the 2/3 requirement, namely that the simple majority does not rule. Well, my God, if that was the true on simple majority, I guess we'd throw the whole Constitution out. We wouldn't have the Second Amendment. We wouldn't have free speech. We wouldn't have anything without a Constitution. A Constitution's important. It really protects the minority from the majority. Think about what I'm saying. In the Constitution, the American Constitution, it was to protect minority. I'm not talking about black. I'm talking about minorities against the majority. Because looking what they're saying in the Advocate, what if they decide to get rid of all good-looking, tall talk show hosts? I'm out. Just a majority vote, I'm out. You see what I'm saying? A majority vote, I'm out. They don't have a vote. Maybe I wouldn't be out, but you get my drift. What if they decide everybody below I-10, everybody in Southwest Louisiana has to pay 10% more taxes, and majority rules? Well, then everybody has to pay 10% more taxes.
The thing about a 2/3 requirement or a supermajority requirement is that it keeps the cycle from changing so quickly between majorities that take over with Democrats are in control or the Republicans are in control, and you would be changing every other year up and down. The 2/3 majority requirement makes it more difficult to do those quick changes when things are tough and they need more revenue, such as the past 3 sessions that we had. But you're absolutely right. And to amend the Constitution takes a 2/3 vote in the legislature. So there's a lot of reasons why, because you don't want the Constitution being amended. It already is amended too much, but we don't want it amended every time somebody gets a harebrained idea and they can get 51 plus 1 the legislators to agree with them. Again, I think that the one thing that scares me the most about going into a constitutional convention where, despite what they say, everything is on the table, is that we lose that protection of the 2/3 vote, because I don't think it's that important to the business community. I think to them it's more important to get the things that they need, that they think are important to be successful in the business world, and they're not as concerned about the 2/3 vote. But that is extremely dangerous, and I think today you see that particular group of people who think that way put it in print for everybody to see that this is the real reason, underlying reason why we're supporting a constitutional convention. Yeah. And here's another thing, Moon. The things that they're talking about doing that you and I would agree with, many of them, if not most of them, can be done with a simple bill.
Absolutely.
They can file the bill right now and make that change, use that same influence they have to control the convention that they can use to control to put the pressure on the legislators to move on this issue. It might take 3 sessions. It might take 4. It might take 5. But eventually they educate the public and they persuade the people and the groups that are for these ideas, persuade the legislators to get on board, and they do it. It's no different to do it that way than to have a convention and do it within the convention, my opinion.
Let me throw something else at you. With the 2/3 vote, this is my numbers. You may tell me I'm off. With the first session, we've had 7 special sessions. The first year, they raised $2.8 billion. They just raised over the next 7 years $3.5 billion. That's $6.3 billion increase with the 2/3 vote. Think about what it just, with the 2/3 vote, if my numbers are somewhere, they're close. $2.3 billion from the time Edwards came into office, stretch it out the next 7 years. $6.3 billion, and with the 2/3 vote, what the hell do they want? How much do they want to take?
Well, it just frustrates them because they can't get the taxes raised easily, and they can't get them as high and as often as they like. We're frustrated because we can't get the budget reform that we like. So because of that frustration, we get the idea of going into a convention, and you see these big groups now on board, PAR and cable and Lobby and others are promoting it because they're just frustrated. But, Moon, they can fix these problems with legislation, and they need to be fixed. There's no question about it. But the danger of the Constitutional Convention is exactly what you're talking about this morning, or one of the dangers, and that is that we lose the individual taxpayer like you and I, lose the protection of a two-thirds supermajority vote to raise taxes. And you're right. If it had been a majority, no telling what we'd have gotten. Because they were not, some in the legislature were fighting for reform, but the general consensus of the legislature was we need more revenue. I didn't hear a whole lot of majority of the people saying, hey, we need to cut spending or we need to get the government spending in line with the economy.
Brett.
There were some out there. There were some out there saying that, but that wasn't what the agenda was. The agenda was we need more revenue.
Yeah. The thing about it is all the changes they wanted was going to increase taxes big time.
Agreed.
Example,
Agreed.
When they passed Stelly, they said it was revenue neutral. We heard a year or two ago that Stelly was bringing in $1 billion a year. That never was brought up to us when they passed it. Mm-hmm. Not at all. Anyway, Brett Geymann, our special guest, we'll visit with him segment or so and let him go back to work so he can buy me lunch next time I see him. Anyway, we'll be right back. You're listening to the Moon Griffon Show.
She was storming through the house that day, and I could tell she was leaving. And I thought, oh, she'll be back. Till she turned around and pointed.
Brett, I don't know if that's about you or not, but I don't know, Brandon. I couldn't tell. You said that was for Brett or about Brett. I couldn't remember which one. Anyway, Brett got my special guest. The man who got my. The man who got my insurance premiums down to a little bit over $2,000 a month, Brett Geymann, my special guest. I'm always going to be thankful for you, Brett. Of course, I'm spending this. See, I've become a politician. Instead of saying, "I ought to thank Brett, he saved me $2,100 a month," I talk about the $2,000 I have to pay. See, that's how you spend things. I can play the game.
You're doing just fine, man. The music is better though today, so I'm happy.
Well, he did that for you, Brett Geymann, my special guest. You know, Brett, one of the things that and I threw it right at the end of the deal was that they raised $6 billion in new taxes with a 2/3 vote. Then you got the advocate crying about the 2/3 vote. Over $6 billion, and the whole concept of Edwards raising all the taxes he did, and of course, on July 1st, he got a new tax for 7 years. That's $6.3 billion, maybe more, in taxes. I'm not counting fees. How about the college tuition, fees, and all that stuff going up? They didn't tell us that. I mean, I thought we fully funded education.
Well, boy, that's the truth. The day after the session was over, some of the university systems went and raised fees on everybody on top of what they supposedly had just been fully funded by the legislature. So that kind of was a slap in the face, I believe, to the students and the taxpayers and the parents. But that's one of the reasons why we don't trust those guys anymore in government, because they don't give us all the information. And you see that some of the groups have surplus money in their accounts that they didn't tell the legislature about while they were crying and begging for money. But it goes back to your point. The 2/3 vote is a critical part of protecting the taxpayer. And look, I'm a budget hawk guy when I was in the legislature, and I wish I'd have gotten my way every time. And we had a very difficult time getting to 70 votes in the House, which is your 2/3, on a lot of issues that we wanted to pass. Mm-hmm. Okay, but the point is that the budget reform issues, those budget issues, ought to be difficult. Budgets ought to be difficult to pass. Taxes ought to be difficult to raise, because it ought to be a consensus among the legislature that reflects the views of the people in the state. And that's the reason you have a 2/3 supermajority vote on those types of issues. A majority vote alone, special interest groups will control everything much more than they do even now.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I don't think people see that. But by the way, y'all made a run at all this dedicated money. And the people that came against y'all, the people that getting the dedicated money, yet they say they're going to go change that. I don't think they change any of that. If they do, it's very little. And if you do change all that, when you came to the Constitutional Convention and you went to put it up for the vote of the people that were getting the, quote, subsidies, they're going to be the ones against it.
Yes. And again, I get the reason why people think we need a convention. And I've told you this before on the show. There are In the past, I was a supporter of the Constitutional Convention. I signed off as a co-author year after year on that because I was so desperate and hungry for real budget reform. But as I stayed there a while, and now that I'm on the outside looking back in, I see it a different way. I am afraid of what would come out of a Constitutional Convention, and I am more supportive of the legislature filing the bills that need to be filed in order to fix these problems, and getting these groups and the people in the public and the taxpayers behind them to fix the problem through legislative instruments that will amend the Constitution. Because if you open it up, Moon, you're going to end up with things that you may wish you'd have never allowed to get in, such as getting rid of the 2/3 supermajority vote on those critical issues like that.
By the way, like I said, they did over $6 billion in new taxes with the supermajority, and they act like that was a problem. They just would have got to the tax a lot easier and quicker. Let me give you an example of why I don't think people in the state, well, I think the governor would be beat, but I don't think the people in the state want any more of these new taxes. The governor and Mike Strain were at a place in Plaquemine dealing with farmers. And during the question, Strain got up in front of the crowd, tell me something, because they were talking about roads and farmers and things of that nature. Strain said, tell me something. How do y'all feel about a road tax? And given the silence greeting Strain's question on fuel taxes, they didn't clap. They didn't agree. Mm-hmm. They didn't say a word. Think about that.
Mm-hmm. Well, it never stops, Moon, and the government, state government and federal government too, for that matter. But we're talking state politics. The state government is spending at a rate that's faster than the economy is growing, and that is the problem.
Yep.
And the Constitutional Convention ought to be focused around that. They ought to be promoting a constitutional convention to link the economy and state spending together, but they're not. That's never talked about, man, and that scares the heck out of me. And that's why I believe we need to leave it to the legislators to do it through bills where we can get behind them. And it may take 2 or 3 sessions to get it passed, but we're willing to do that. I think that's the better avenue.
Can a governor, strong Louisiana governor, lead the charge for real change like that?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, that ain't happening with this governor.
Well, but that's absolutely a key part of that. You get a good, strong governor in there that's willing to reform, willing to lead, willing to let the legislature follow, work together. Absolutely, those things can get done. You get the PAR, you get cable, you get lobby, you get those groups behind them, and things can happen. And by the way, those groups were not behind us when John Schroeder and Cameron Henry and Lance Harris, Brett Geymann, Bob Henskins, those Jim Morris, all those guys were there, in the past trying to do these things.
Yep.
Lobby was not behind us. They weren't against us, but they were not behind us.
No, they kept going to the Senate budget under John Alario, which we keep doing the same thing.
If those guys would get behind the legislators who are trying to do budget reform and fiscal responsible things, and we could get it done within the legislative body we have now. And that's what I think is the best path forward.
I like the idea that government grows as the economy grows. That's what needs to be done. Brett Geymann, thank you, sir. Enjoyed it. Thank you so much. I wish Brett was here doing the program today. Instead of him thinking of me of pink Speedo, he'd go have a pink cupcake.
Well, you just ruined the cupcake for me. I was going to grab one during the break, but never mind.
I knew Brandon did need a cupcake, folks, and they pink. He looked at him and I said, I know how to make Brandon not go get a pink cupcake.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Brandon's looking the other way out the window now.
Yeah,
no drive-by shootings today, Brandon. You're in good shape, man. Anyway, great to have you with us. 844-766-6607. Hickson has a hotline. Yeah, came across that. Actually, a couple of these articles. Brett, thanks for sending the one. Majority rules, not so much in Louisiana, thanks to the 2/3 vote. And I got to thinking, if you raised under Bell Edwards over $6 billion in taxes, and I can make the argument for it. You look at the $2.8 billion they raised, and that ain't counting fees, tuition increases and all that. And then you look at the new deal for 7 years is a little bit under $500 million for 7 years. That's $3.5 billion right there in new taxes. And then you look at the taxes they raised in the quick 27 months was about $2.8 billion. So if you add that up, in my book, it's $6.3 billion in new taxes raised by the governor. And you can make the argument all day long. And we've not changed a thing, not fixed the road, nothing. He wanted road tax. They wanted more income taxes. So you make the argument the majority rules. The 2/3 vote is important. And I'm telling you, and I've said it, and Brandon, you heard me, when they do one of these constitutional conventions one day, this is the prize. And they've already raised all those taxes with the 2/3 vote. Yeah, it was tough. Yeah, they had to do. But I don't know what Edwards bought. He hadn't changed anything. He's no different than any governor that's ever come through. Not even close. Actually, he's a liberal Democrat, and we see what he is. But when they're writing stories like this, like it's a bad thing, and by the way, Senator Vitter led the charge on the 2/3 vote. When they act like this is a bad thing, this is a good thing for you and me. When they say in the Advocate, solutions often fail the 2/3 vote, and of course they blame the state house, they never blame the Senate. They never blame the Senate for everything. We've been voting for the Senate budget for over 10 years. I mean, over 10 years. Then they bring up Florida. Don't ever bring up Florida and compare us. They said the 2/3 vote is not the standards. Well, this is the thing. If it's not the standard, why don't we make the standard Texas? And then we don't have an income tax. Florida doesn't have an income tax. They probably have higher property taxes. You know, we always say let's do the standard, but why not the standard in everything? Not just the increase of government money coming to government. They said it takes 2/3 a vote to raise in California. Supermajority requirement. Highest income taxes rates in the country. Yes. Because they got a lot more nuts there. That's all. But the thing about it is, for them to make the comment, but we do see one bad effect from the 2/3 vote, namely that the simple majority does not rule, folks. If there was just majority rule, that's mob rule. They would love to get rid of the Constitution, the big Constitution for our country and our state Constitution. Our Constitution protects minorities. Our Constitution is there for a reason. It's to protect people. It ain't to protect the government. It's to protect the people. But somebody in the press, these people in that, they don't care about that kind of stuff. Well, the majority rules. We got a problem because the majority don't rule. What if the majority of the people, we put up a vote, Brandon, and the majority of people, we said, we're getting rid of all the printed press. We will have no more printed press. No more Advocate, no more Jim Beam stories, no more new Greg Hillman stories, which is probably wrong anyway. And the majority rule, we didn't want any more printed press. That would be majority rule. What would be wrong with it? Well, you can't stop the freedom of the press. Well, the freedom of the press has lost its mind. The freedom of the press is not on the same train track anymore. The freedom of press picks sides, and some of the national media is like this, especially the printed press in Louisiana. They pick sides. They don't tell the truth. They pick sides. They don't tell the truth. They don't want to tell the truth. They are upset because they say the simple majority does not rule in taxes. Everybody sets up their own tax policy. Here's another thing that folks, that when people in the press and elected officials talk about this, everybody ought to be mad at this. Okay? When they talk about terms like revenue neutral, we were told the Stelly bill back in the day in 2000, 2002 was net revenue neutral. It passed because lobbyists sat on the sideline. We had no state Republican Party at the time. Mike Foster owned it through Republican Renewal, and that was a joke. So it passed. Okay? An increase of income taxes on middle class and working class people. They told us that was revenue neutral. A few years ago when we were arguing about this, they now say that the Stelly bill brought in $1 billion extra money to the state coffers. $1 billion. That number never came up. $500 million never came up. They knew. They knew. And by the way, we had budget problems then as well. We always got budget problems. Folks, think about it. They keep saying, well, if we didn't get rid of the Stelly bill, the Advocate keeps writing this, Jim Beam keeps writing this, the News Gannett paper, the Times-Picayune keep writing, we wouldn't have got rid of the Stelly bill, we wouldn't have these problems. Oh, so no time in the history did they talk about closing hospitals, Brandon. None. Never happened, right? That was before Stelly was implemented. That's when it was invented. They're going to turn off the dialysis machines. Edwin Edwards was the governor. That was before the Stelly bill. Turn off the dialysis machines. We're going to throw poor people in the streets. Heard that all my life. Heard it all my life. Way before Stelly came in. Folks, they pick sides without giving you truth. They're worried about the supermajority. They don't want the majority to rule. Simple majority does not rule. Do they really want a simple majority in everything? Hey, people that think we ought to get rid of electoral college, that's the kind of mind thinking they have. Well, we just simple majority ought to be rule the president is. As we open the borders and let people come in, people registered people to vote in California and New York who are not even legal citizens. And the majority should rule. There's one word that rhymes with rule. And the people that believe that the simple majority should rule and nothing else are fools. They're just fools. These people are writing in a newspaper and an editorial telling people they upset that the 2/3 vote requirement on taxes is not the simple majority and that should be the way we rule. There's some things we do rule that way. But if you did that on everything and threw the Constitution out, people, you wouldn't be happy what people would be voting for. We wouldn't be happy at all in some things. Let me ask you a question. We had the Supreme Court change the definition of marriage, Brandon. Why don't we put that up for a simple majority vote? Why don't we put that up for a simple majority vote on the definition of marriage? If we're going to listen to the advocate ignorance, let's just put it up for a simple majority vote and let's see how people voted. If we rule that marriage is a man and a woman, that's it, simple majority, right? Why don't we put up a simple majority on its LGBT in the bathroom question? Let's put it up for a simple majority. You know what we're going to rule? We're going to rule very simply, men go in men's bathroom and women go in women's, and all you got to do is look in your underwear to find out where you go if you get confused. It's not that hard. Simple majority, right? Let's do a majority, simple majority. Legal citizens can or cannot vote. Illegal citizens can or cannot vote. Simple majority. Let's see where we get there. Let's do a simple majority to build that wall. Telling you, Brandon, you got Constitution. We got lawmakers that said 2/3 vote because that's what the people want. And Brandon, I think if you go back, that was a constitutional amendment. I think on that one, I have to ask Brett. We voted for 2/3 vote. Why do you think they have to go to the Constitution to get rid of it, Brandon? It's in the dang Constitution. We voted on it. And guess who ruled, Brandon? Simple majority. The ignorance of the advocate is phenomenal now. They love Bell Edwards no matter what the cost. Jeff and Lafayette, you're up next. You're listening to the Moon Griffon Show. Hickson has it hotline. We'll be right back. Hi, y'all. Welcome back. Moon Griffon Show. Great to have you with us. 844-766-6607. Hickson has it hotline if you'd like to be part of the program. Yeah, folks, never let them tell you about revenue neutral. That is when they say revenue neutral, run. That means there's revenue coming in you hadn't figured out yet. And they did that with Stelly. Yes. If it brought in $1 billion, that was a lie from up front. And by the way, before the Stelly bill was ever passed, we had budget problems. We had dialysis is going to be turned off, poor people going out in the streets. We've seen this time and time again. That's the best commercials you can run against Bell Edwards, is to show him scaring the hell out of the nursing homes and the hospitals and all that kind of stuff. Just scare them all. Scaring the foot. Look, when somebody says there may not be any LSU football, it's politics. Okay, a lot of things may not happen this fall. Okay, a lot of it. But politicians stopping LSU football, I'm not talking about some disaster, plane accident, but politicians stopping LSU football is never going to happen. Brandon, you talk about the death knell for politicians, but Bell Edwards out of his mouth. And this is all coming on commercials. That's what I get a kick out of people thinking Bell Edwards is going to win. We haven't seen anything challenging what he's doing. And Lanny Keller, another sycophant, is writing, well, if the economy's getting better, we're going to give Edwards credit. Jim Beam did that in Lake Charles this Sunday. I told y'all this was coming. The bragging about Edwards and all these accomplishments. Now they're going to tell you that Bell Edwards changed the economy. Jim Beam wrote an article this weekend giving him credit for all the stuff going on in Lake Charles, which, by the way, started way before he got in office. And he's still over there taking credit. And Jim Beam is dumb enough to do it. So, anyway, I just want to say that again. But we do see one bad effect from a 2/3 requirement, namely that the simple majority does not rule. Well, let's have votes on marriage. We do everything by a simple majority. Let's see how many people want to get rid of newspapers. I do. I'm voting for it, Brandon. Well, if we say it, then we get rid of them. They just don't care about the Constitution. That's why they got all this thing, open the borders, let people in, register them to vote, because they don't care about the rule of law. If we vote a 2/3 vote, and by the way, not only did the legislature led by David Vitter give us that, the people wanted the 2/3 vote. Just like the people voted, not in every instance, but all this money that's dedicated, Brandon, and they say we got a dedicated budget problem. The people voted for the dedication because they didn't trust the politicians to put the money in the right place. So the people voted for that. Oh, that's a bad thing. Then why did you bring it to the vote of the people? You know why they bring that to the vote of the people? So they can say, well, I had nothing to do with that. The people did it. Majority rule. This is what I mean. No sense whatsoever in the printed press and the people that are doing this. Stephanie Gray, Lanny Keller. People read that and believe that? Wow, that's like watching CNN and believing it. How stupid can you get? Jeff in Lafayette. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing okay, Moon. How about yourself?
I'm doing fine, sir. It's a Monday, best day of the work week. No matter what Como says. Right. No matter what Como says.
Yeah. I just wanted to touch base with you about an article that I read from the Louisiana Hayride about all this surplus that these different departments had in the Treasury over there in Baton Rouge, and yet we still got this John Gumbel Edwards hollering about, oh, we're going to have to cut this and we're going to have to cut that, and then we got all this lying sacks of manure that votes in favor of him.
Oh, well, there's not a whole lot we can do about that. I will say this. Yeah, it's no doubt about it. The Supreme Court was saying you can't cut us, and you can't cut us, but don't look in our bank account with $58 million. All those departments do that. They're moving money around and shifting. Example, when Bell Edwards says they cut $645 million out the budget, they'll take a budget. Let's take health care. Well, under the health care, there may be 20 departments, 10, whatever it is. And what they did was they shift money from one department to another, and they say they cut it. No, they didn't. They shifted it over here. That's what they've done. Bell Edwards has claimed he's cut $1.2 billion out the budget. He didn't say that. He said the budget they just passed with the $3.5 billion in new tax increases, he said we had to cut $600 million out of that budget. I mean, it's just they don't care. The printed media doesn't care about the truth at all. There's been money. There's so much money in state government, it's not even funny. Brett Geymann said it best. Why don't we just take the state government and base it off of what our economy does? First of all, it would be $2.5 billion less right now.
Right.
Because our economy can't produce this. Number two, one of the reasons our GDP's gone up is because we've taken as much money as we can from the federal government. We're the biggest moochers from the federal government in any state in the country.
No, I believe that.
So, yeah, the hayride is right. We got money galore, and they had to have even more.
They need to take it out of their pocket.
That ain't happening, bro.
All these folks that voted in favor of this budget and these tax increases, if they're in my district, I'm voting against them. I don't care if it's my sister's dog, Max, running. I'm voting against them.
Well, I don't blame you a bit. By the way, everybody in the state knows we tax way too much. They keep telling us, just like they used to tell us. This used to be the going thing with Jim Beam and Greg Hilburn and people in the Advocate. They used to always say, well, our budget has more federal money than state money. No, it doesn't. The federal money is not more. It's 42% of the state budget and growing because of Medicaid. It was in the 30s before Medicaid. Okay? We were spending way more money in the state. I used to tell people that. And they used to say, no, you're wrong. And I'd say, where are you getting your information from? And then now it just came out, 42% of our budget is federal money. That means we produce 58% of our budget. And I'm just telling you, our economy, they can talk all they want. The rest of the country is booming. Okay? We're finally coming behind them. We're not leading. We're coming behind them. And yet the stories will be Bell Edwards' economy. That's all you're going to hear for the next year or so until election. You're going to hear Bell Edwards' economy.
But Bell Edwards' economy is suing the jobs out of the state.
Well, just the lawsuits against an industry like the oil companies ought to shut down the Bell Edwards train next election. That is sinful what his buddies and he's done with the oil companies. I'm telling you, it is pitiful.
That is true.
Yeah. All right, man. Appreciate the call. By the way, as far as taxes, Brandon, let me give you an example. They did of course, here's another advocate. Not funding transportation has unintended consequences for Louisiana farmers. Okay, so they do a meeting with Mike Strain and John Bell Edwards in Plaquemine, my hometown. They were doing it at the, matter of fact, Brandon, I got a kick out of this too, because my uncle's name Alton Landry, and they were doing it at Alton Landry Incorporated Farm in Plaquemine. I don't know if it's the same thing or not. So Mike Strain gets up in front of the farmers, okay, and they were talking about road taxes. Strain can read the political tea leaves as well as anyone. He says, tell me something. How do y'all feel about a road tax? Strain asked the crowd. What was their response? Did they clap? Did they cheer? Were they excited? According to the advocate. And given the silence greeting Strain's question on fuel taxes. Now, Brandon, they didn't clap. They didn't say a word. Why do you think that? Because they're not for increased taxes either.
They're tired of being taxed like crazy.
Brandon, we are. A lot of people not even help pulling the wagon here. They didn't clap. They didn't say, yes, let's do it. And that's why nobody wants these higher taxes, except the people that are benefiting from it, that are on the government payroll.
And the only reason they probably didn't verbalize being against it was because they wanted to show some respect to the people and the offices that were there. But
absolutely. But Brandon, they didn't clap.
Yeah.
Even the advocate noticed. Oh, dang, they didn't clap. They didn't say a word. And nobody clapped when they raised all these taxes. If the Republican Party and the people would get rid of the Republicans that voted for all these taxes, almost all of them in the Senate. Not all of them, but almost all of them. Page Cortez, Walsworth, Clutch. I mean, I wish I had to send John Alario. Matter of fact, in one of the stories that they wrote, Brandon, Lanny Keller says he hopes that John Alario is running in the House and comes back, and he's been the biggest problem we got down in the legislature. I'll get to that a little later. Medicare, Bernie Sanders' Medicare will only cost $32.6 billion, Brandon. No wonder they're not saying who's going to pay for that. Everybody on Medicare, and by the way, there are Democrats in this state that think that's a great idea and get rid of the Second Amendment. By the way, that's John Bell Edwards' party, I think. All right, we're going to take a break. More to come, a lot more to come, including more on Trump. Boy, the lies that are coming out on that is phenomenal. Cohen is, he'll tell a lie and smile at you now. All right, we'll take a break. Be right back. Hi, hello, welcome back. Moon Griffon Show. Great to have you with us. 844-766-6607. Hickson has that hotline if you'd like to be part of the program. Your opportunity to be a voice as we close in on the month, Brandon. By the way, I want to mention Hickson Autoplex tomorrow, Brandon. In case I don't tell you till tomorrow, I wanted to tell you today. Hickson Autoplex tomorrow. Cornelius called me the other day and said, did Moon tell you he was coming to Hickson on Tuesday? What did he?
Said, no, he didn't, but thank you for letting me know, Cornelius. Cornelius is telling, Cornelius knows before I know.
Yeah. Cornelius probably knew before I knew.
Yeah.
Didn't even think about that. But yeah, we'll be in conjunction with our good friends at Sandler Broadcasting tomorrow. Hickson Autoplex. Ought to have fun, Dallas. First time I've seen Dallas since he beat me. Since he hosted for me while I was going on vacation. So it ought to be an interesting reunion, I'm sure, to say the least. But anyway, that's tomorrow in Illick at Hickson Autoplex. Looking forward to it. Of course, Hickson has a hotline, 844-766-6607. Hickson has a hotline. And by the way, before I get to some national stuff, I do want to get that. A couple of things. No tax-free weekend Louisiana has been canceled, as you know. They've been canceled. They canceled that. This is what happens when you pass taxes and you don't pay attention to everything on the bill. I heard even some of the Republicans who voted against it didn't care if this passed or not. Friday, August 3rd was supposed to be a start of the free weekend for Louisiana consumers, back to school state tax holiday. There is none. People still think it's one going on. There was also one, Brandon, for during hurricane season. That would usually do one so people can go get goods and batteries and flashlights and generators and things like that. We even had a call from somebody who wanted to buy a generator, wanted to wait till that time came so they didn't have to pay a sales tax on buying a new generator. That's gone. The legislature wiped that out when they voted for the 7-year tax that they voted for. See, this is what's amazing, Brandon. Well, this is Mark Ballard. He says if they would have gave the sales tax, okay, it would have cost the state $5.2 million. Why does the state get its money?
You know where they get their money from us.
But listen, this is a newspaper writer, Mark Ballard. It cost the state $5.2 million. Brandon, they got $6.3 billion in new money. They took the whole $352 million from the Trump tax cut. They couldn't give us back $5.2 million in sales taxes. Remember when Bel Air was sent out the tweet about all the stuff, the good stuff, and we cut taxes? What did they cut taxes at? There were no taxes cut. They raised the tax, and 2 years later they come back and cut half of it, and they call it a tax cut. Folks, how can the governor say, I cut the budget $600 million. I gave you all a tax cut. Just outright lies, but people in the news, like Mark Ballard, sits there and don't understand anything. $5.2 million. I'm talking about a minuscule tax on it. And they couldn't give us a break back on that because they just had to have the money, folks. The Second Amendment sales tax, September 7th, 8th, and 9th. This would have saved, this would have cost the state, according to Ballard, $404,000 in a $31 or $2 billion budget. It's just, you read this kind of stuff, and I heard a lot of Republicans, even ones that voted against it, knew this was in there, but they just looked the other way. They were ready to go home. This is what happens when you just do something and you're ready to go home. So for $5 million, $5.2 million, we just gave up on it. So there won't be any rush to buy. Of course, people that are buying school supplies and stuff, you're going to not only have to buy, you also have to pay the sales tax. One other thing, Lanny Keller, will Louisiana Governor Bel Edwards be reelected? Hell no. I can answer that for you. But not Lanny. Lanny's going to make the case. And by the way, in the story, he mentions John Alario, been there since 72, talk about becoming an institution. Maybe he'll be back in the House. I can screw the House up, I guess. Anyway, goes on and talks about the race. They never mention how Edwards got in. Nobody talks about the 150,000 people who would not vote for Vitter, but was not going to vote for Bel Edwards coming back to vote. And they're not coming back to vote for Bel Edwards. What did he do to get the economy? Jim Beam, and I told y'all this was coming, area growth is a real thing. Jim Beam mentions Edwards almost in every paragraph, bragging about what he did to make the economy over there roll, and the economy over there was rolling before Bel Edwards was ever mentioned. Once again, Beam, a sycophant for Deputy Press Secretary for Edwards. This is how they're going to write all these stories. And so they write one for Bel Edwards, Lanny Keller, who people told me quit mentioning his name. Nobody reads this crap. Probably nobody reads Beam. But it just gets me frustrated that these people don't have a clue and they continue to write about stuff that they don't understand what happened. One paragraph, talking about what people have not forgot about. How he expanded Medicaid and this is going to bring voters in. Nor has people entirely forgotten about the mess that former Governor Jindal brought, but Edwards voted for 6 of the 8 budgets. That needs to be reminded. He voted for all that mess. And he didn't inherit the budget. He voted for it. And then he talks about the economy getting better. And it's hard to portray Edwards as a job killer. Ask somebody in the oil and gas industry if they think Edwards is a job killer. I'm surprised more people don't call in from the oil and gas industry and talk about Edwards being the job killer that he is. He's over there getting credit from Jim Beam of what's happening in Lake Charles, and that all started way before he was a governor. That's been going on. Matter of fact, give Jindal credit. That's when it popped up. This is what they're going to do. I told you, folks, they're going to write this stuff and spin this stuff. Our GDP for 2 years has been negative. The only state in the country with a negative GDP. The Medicaid expansion is devastating us. $6.3 billion in new taxes with nothing fixed. And $1 billion projected deficit the first year, whoever the new governor is. So, job killer. Ask somebody in the oil and gas industry if he's a job killer. And then here's the one thing we've been saying too, Brandon. Lanny Keller writes, it's also difficult to see Republican legislators blocking teachers' pay raises during election year next year. If the economy grows and revenues permit the crowd-pleasing maneuver, benefiting the incumbents of both parties. He claims Edwards has $5 million in his war chest. Brandon, it won't matter. Whoever runs against him will have all the money they ever wanted. Listen, folks, what you're not seeing is there's not been any negative on Bill Edwards except what came out of my mouth, and mine hadn't been negative. Mine's been truthful. Wait till the advertisement starts next year. All the things he did, people are going to be reminded of. And it's coming. That $5 million, that's nothing in a $50 million race. You're looking at $40 or $50 million race. Republicans want a Republican governor for redistricting. They don't want a guy who, by the way, this is little things that you don't remember. But when Bill Edwards ran at 5 o'clock that night, Barack Obama's voice went out to the black communities to support Bill Edwards. He has the support of Barack Obama. He's in a Democrat party that believes by Karen Carter and Peterson they ought to get rid of the Second Amendment. I don't care what he says about the Second Amendment. His party is against the Second Amendment. You give this guy a free rein for 4 years, you just think you had taxes raised on you. You just think we raised taxes, $6.3 billion. So anyway, then this is the funny one, though. Nor is he out of sync with the major Republican leaders. He's close with Republicans, Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser and Agriculture Commissioner Mike Strain. So they're putting these Republicans in there, and that's why Republicans who voted for all these taxes give Republicans a bad name, a horrible name. Then at the end, of course, he takes a shot. Maybe the consensus in the state capitol is wrong. Ask Governor Vitter. Shot at Vitter. He's not the governor. But the general view of the less Edwards vulnerable spots than his strength as the political season begins. He's very vulnerable. He's not vulnerable. He's going to get beat. I can't go anywhere. This is what I told people. This is what I told people when Mary Landrieu got beat. Nobody believed she was going to get beat. And I said she would get beat no matter who runs. I feel the same way here as well. No, it's not a Governor Vitter. God bless as it should be. Because people didn't understand. But those voters that voted for Bill Edwards who hated Vitter are going back home to the Republican Party. And the voters who didn't vote are going back home to the Republican candidate. I'm sticking by that because I believe that's what's going to happen, and our state may change. Now, the next Republican comes in, better be on their P's and Q's and get something done. Edwards has got nothing done. Absolutely nothing. All right, let's go to phone lines. Go on the road. Jethro on the road. Jethro, how you doing? Oh, let's go. I'm sorry. Dwayne in Lafayette first. Dwayne, how you doing?
Oh, good morning, Moon.
How you doing, sir?
I'll tell you, John Bell Edwards has accomplished a lot. He's accomplished raising our taxes, forcing people to leave the state to work, forcing people to have to go overseas to get jobs. He's just demolished the oil and gas industry with all his lawyer buddies suing everything coming in, to where even Bouchon is hurting because they're not wanting to go in and out of there because they're afraid to go get taxed to death. So those of us who are in the industry have had to migrate away. I mean, I think I'm about to pay income tax in 4 or 5 states this year because I'm traveling for work just so that I can make ends meet because I can't do it in my home state.
I know, but that's all going to come back to haunt him when an election comes up. Are you talking to people that are Bill? Are you talking to people that are Bill Edwards fans? I know a lot of people said
nobody likes him.
No, and I
take it back. A few people who think they like him because he's politically connected, but they won't discuss his politics. I mean, people that shouldn't be agreeing with him like him and want to be seen with him. But when you say, well, what about he's for abortion? Well, no, he's a pro-life Catholic. No, he's a Democrat. He's for abortion. They can't come back on it because, I mean, I'm sorry, if you're a Democrat, you stand for abortion, period.
By the way, Karen...
Otherwise, you need to back out.
Karen Carter Peterson, head of the Democrat Party in the state of Louisiana, says, I want to get rid of the Second Amendment. Bell Edwards to win, Bell Edwards would win. You hadn't seen taxes. And you got enough weak Mo Taxes Abrahams, the Rob Shadwans, the Ivies, the Page Cortezes. These weak Republicans are not conservatives. They're not even close. They don't even try to be conservative. No. Frank Hoffman. I mean, Lord, I love him to death. He's really a good guy. He needs to go home. He's a liberal. He votes like a liberal.
My representative is one of the conservative ones, so I support him. But I mean, that's all I can do. I mean, Taylor Barron's from my district, so he's been fighting tooth and nail trying to stop this, but he's not getting the support he needs.
All right, man, we got to run. Thanks for the call. We'll take some more calls after 844-766-6607. Hickson has that hotline. You people are here and Bayou Edwards is going to win. Everywhere I go, North Louisiana, South Louisiana, they don't see it this way. We'll take, and they didn't even start any advertisement on him yet, Brandon. Everything's been pro-Edwards. We'll take a break. Hi, y'all. Welcome back. Moon Griffon Show. Great to have you with us. 844-766-6607. Hickson has that hotline if you'd like to be part of the program. Going to jump gears. Paul Hurd joins me. Paul, how you doing?
Hey, man, doing great this morning. How about you?
I'm doing good, man. Hey, and one of the reasons... Go ahead.
No. I was just going to say this is the first Friday of the week.
I'm telling you, no doubt about it. I wish you could tell Brandon that. He won't listen to me. But anyway, that's beside the point. Hey, well, one of the things I've been watching this thing with Trump and his lawyer. And so I'm hoping you can give us some rules. And it may be different in every state, but you can at least explain what happens in Louisiana. So you're my lawyer, Paul. Me and you have had a lot of conversations. I'd be livid to know you tape one conversation. But my point being, if you're my personal lawyer and you've done some work for me, what can you go do with it? Can you tape me? Can you go to CNN and play this? You're involved in a deal with Mueller and a special prosecutor, and you can tweet things and you can say things and you can go on. You can give it to CNN. I mean, tell me what would be the rules for me and you governing anything we did, at least in the state of Louisiana.
Well, and I'm glad you make the distinction. I can't speak to New York, but generally our attorney-client privilege is pretty standard across the nation. All right, let's start with it first. Conversations, communications between clients and lawyers are confidential but can be released with the permission of the client, not the lawyer. Whether it's a tape, whether it's a conversation, whether it's a document. Now, there are a couple of exceptions that don't apply in this circumstance. One of the easiest to understand is if they're in an attorney-client privilege conversation, if you, as the lawyer, receive information that says, I'm going to do imminently ready to do bodily harm to somebody, a crime is going to be committed, you can release enough information to stop that injury. But we don't have that problem here. You can't release it to save your tail. You can release it to prevent
so hold on, let me stop you.
Real damage to somebody else.
So if we went into a meeting, in this case, the lawyer taped it, that means you would tape me and then you release it to the public. That's not the client releasing, that's the lawyer releasing. What is the rules for in the state for me and you meet? Can you tape me, just you and me? Can you just tape a conversation with you and me?
I'm going to say this. I would not. The point of taping a conversation. Let's divide the world in two. Taping a conversation when the client knows versus taping a conversation when the client doesn't know, or even maybe the third, taping a conversation even when you've told the client you are not taping.
How about taping a conversation so I can go give it to a campaign set up from behind the doors? I mean, Paul, I know you're watching this.
The real answer is what you're going to run into on this matter is the people that it's released to will claim, I think they will claim First Amendment right, and they're not going to disclose where they got it, okay?
Yeah.
Then Lanny Davis and Cohen, the lawyer, will claim we didn't do it, and Trump and them will say, I didn't do it, and what happens is it's a circle, and who released it is hard to prove. Now, the long and the short of it is very common sense, what you would think. I don't believe I should tape a client without telling him. Now, I don't have to have a client. I don't have to have a conversation with a client if I'm uncomfortable enough with my client that I don't want to represent him unless I've got a taped evidence of what he told me to do and what he told me and didn't tell me, okay? So you would go and you would say, all right, I'll represent you, but I'm going to tape. If we're going to deal with Scandal 107, it's okay, but we're going to tape this conversation so we'll both know what you told me.
Okay, let me ask you this question. When you look at Cohen, his lawyer for Trump, tapes him. We got a special prosecutor, gets the tapes. Now the tapes are released to the Clinton News Network, CNN. Now it's released everywhere. We don't know what they heard. Giuliani says one thing, they say something else. In Louisiana, would any of that be legal? Just what you know about it? Do you think any of that's legal?
Let's talk about another interesting deal about taping, period. All right, taping conversations of people. Forget their attorney-client privilege. There's a one-person state, they're called a one-person state or a two-person state, as it relates to the legally taping a conversation. In Louisiana, we're a one-person state. As long as the person who is taping knows he is taping, it is not illegal for him to tape that conversation. Other states are what we call two-person states, and in those states, it's illegal to tape unless both sides of the conversation know. I don't know. I don't practice law in New York, but I thought New York was a two-person state. If New York is a two-person state, it means it is illegal to, if it's a two-person state, it would have been illegal, forget the attorney-client privilege, it would have been illegal to tape a conversation between Cohen and Trump unless Trump knew.
But now, when you get, let's move one other step.
So it
can be very confusing to people. Okay, let me go to you're my lawyer. You're my lawyer, and you've been my lawyer before, but you're my lawyer, and my relationship with you, dealing with whatever the subject is not just between us. You can't go out tomorrow to the News Star and say, "Let me tell you what Moon talked. Let me tell you what me and Moon talked about in our meeting."
No. The answer is yes. Unless Moon hired me to handle the matter and handling the matter. Look, I take clients occasionally. I mean, it's not called for, but I take clients where I go as a lawyer to go inquire about information or to contact people. And the people I'm contacting don't even know I'm doing it as somebody's lawyer. But still, the conversations that I have with the target are disclosable to my client, but my client's existence is not disclosable to the target unless the client said I could.
Yeah.
The client is in charge.
But don't you think that Trump being the client, this has politics, and let's just face it, this whole Mueller thing is politics, but don't this is probably the worst of the politics? Because as you know, Paula, you can get somebody to lie on the stand and smile about it.
No, I think the answer, the interest. I got a couple of questions. I've seen in a couple of these inquiries. Well, even one of Trump's tweets said, he's in trouble with his taxi cab business. Now, I don't know what's going on with the taxi cab, but here's all I was going to say. If that tape came from the lawyer who surreptitiously, without Trump's knowledge, taped him and released it without his consent, what it tells me is that Cohen is in deep enough trouble that he's already given up on keeping his law license.
Yeah. Well, not only that, he's keeping his butt out of jail
as a non-lawyer. That looks that he's got. If it is proven that he released that tape, now I'll tell you what would be fun, unless will be his lawyer. If his lawyer, Lanny Davis, participated in that release, Lanny Davis violated the ethics code, too.
But when you think of Lanny Davis, I think of one of the most political prostitutes of all time.
But the question is whether he gets to do it with his license or as a consultant, whether he loses his license.
I still think this thing can backfire on them big time. I just kind of wanted to know the gist of, if you're my lawyer and we've met, can you tape me, and then go? And then here's the problem with the tape: you release it, Mueller comes in and investigate. You give it up to Mueller, but it finds its way on CNN and MSNBC and ABC and CBS and Fox. I got a problem with that. I'm thinking, how in the world can you be conducting a sensible, what they're doing with Trump? How can it be sensible when they're doing stuff like that?
Well, here's what's going to happen. When you use a tape, you've got to prove where it came from in a trial. So if a chain of custody, when was it made, who had it, who passed it on to who, so who released that tape, if it's ever used in court or used in the investigation to support other evidence, the source of that tape is also going to get disclosed one day.
Yeah. Yep.
But I think, what I see is either they will not use it. They're using it to embarrass Trump, not to use it in the investigation.
Absolutely.
Or they try to use it in the investigation, they'll have to show them where they got it. And if Cohen is the source, then I think he's decided he doesn't want to be a lawyer anymore.
By the way, Trump's approval, Rasmussen just left it up to 47. As long as they keep doing it, his numbers are going up, not down. So interesting. All right, Paul, I appreciate it. No,
that helps a little bit.
Well, it helps a little bit, but it doesn't help the whole way because it's confusing if you're not a lawyer, if you don't understand it. It's very confusing.
Don't tape it without permission. You could in Louisiana, but even if you do, I can guarantee you, if you're a lawyer, you cannot release that tape without the client's consent.
Yeah, and by the way, not only release it, make sure CNN and MSNBC and all the news organizations got it. That makes me believe that's the embarrassment part of it. But the point is, if the guy's a liar and a known liar, then that's how people are going to look at him, as a liar.
Look, if he was the source of that tape, he's gonna have a different job description in 5 years.
Yeah, Paul Hurd, thank you, appreciate it.
Man, good to talk with you.
All right, man, appreciate it. Paul Hurd, of course, is a lawyer. He's sometimes the official lawyer of the Moon Griffon Show. Hi, y'all, welcome back, Moon Griffon Show. Great to have you with us. 844-766-6607. Hickson has a hotline. That was Paul Hurd. Of course, he's an attorney, and I knew that it would be some differences, but it seems like a law that really protect people. And if you got a client-lawyer privilege, it's no way you could tape them and then release that to a special prosecutor, then release that to the news networks that hate you. That's just me. I just don't. The common sense in that. Now, you got to look at the law in it. Just doesn't seem right. Now, as you know, the press, they read the other day, Trump gets 91 or 92% negative coverage. With a New York Times publisher and Trump clash over president's threats against journalism. President Trump has never threatened journalists. They can determine to write that he's never threatened journalists at all. Trump has never threatened one journalist ever. That's how they read it, because he doesn't let them just slam him. He challenges them. So he wants a private meeting with Donald Trump, and I think they set up a meeting for July 20th. He wants to raise his concern about President's deeply troubling anti-press rhetoric. I told the president directly that I thought his language was not just divisive, but increasingly dangerous. Now, let's think about this. He's crying that it's dangerous for the journalists. the rhetoric that the press puts out, like the guy Steve Scalise killed. Steve Scalise, our own congressman, was almost killed from the rhetoric from the left and the Democrats in the press, but they see nothing wrong with it. There was another story, too. Okay? There was over 500 violent attacks on Trump supporters that the journalists won't cover. But they worried about their little people. They're worried about their little people being hurt. I'm not talking about people in the state of Louisiana. I'm talking about the national stuff. So we got a guy that's worried about his journalists, and Trump's not telling them to attack. We got Maxine Waters, a nut of all nuts, hollering to go get in their face. Obama was the one said, hey, if they take what did he say, Brandon? They take a knife, we take a gun? That was Barack Hussein Obama. Never a word. He whispered something to the prime minister of Russia. Tell Putin, just be cool, be cool. When I get elected, I'll have more leeway. No big deal. 500, Brandon, by the way, they got pictures of these people. Beat up 539 violent attacks since 2016. And I blame them on Steve Scalise. And this little weenie, and he's a weenie, well, you've been Minister Trump, you've been too dangerous for us. Nobody's going out there from outside doing anything to journalists. Boo them. That's about all. The only things come out of Trump's mouth is fake news. Well, there's some journalists. They got journalists killed every day. They got journalists killed all the time, Brian. They go in some deep, deep places. They get hurt and killed. You don't see that much in the United States of America. I wouldn't advocate doing that at all. Not at all. But it's fake news, and it's been fake news. And the New York Times publisher is complaining Trump about potential violence against journalists. 38 attacks, since 2016. The liberal mainstream media doesn't even cover. They got pictures of people with bloody faces, black eyes, teeth knocked out, noses broken, and guess what? They don't even cover it. And Trump, who has to defend himself from 92% negative coverage, and you got this little weenie from the New York Times, and I mean a weenie, wanting to meet with Trump, a little geek, and they don't cover any of the stories. Now, by the way, that's not all press, Brandon, so don't take it personal. I'm talking about the national media. We're talking national media here. I'll give you an example, Brandon. We had some hats made, Make Alaska Great Again. It's the same initials as the MAGA cow, Make America Great Again. Same color, red. We had them in Broadway. We had 60 we gave out to some people that came with us, during the course of the trip. Well, when they came, listen to this, people on the cruise, and I can tell you, they'll call in right now and tell you this, people on the cruise were wanting to buy them. They wanted to know where they can buy them from. They were big hits on the cruise. These people were wearing them. Nobody said anything negative. None. Except when these two little sweet ladies got to Seattle, and some tough Democrat man picking on two women, went up to him and said, y'all ought to be ashamed of yourselves for wearing that. And they said, sir, can you read? We know you vote Democrat, but can you read? Said, Make Alaska Great Again. It was a phrase I coined out of deal, and we just had fun with it. Rob and him jumped on it, and the people loved it. But it was the Democrat, and he read, so you ought to still be ashamed of yourself. Just getting in their face. Of course, there's a Democrat man in the face of a Republican women or conservative women. So that's what we're fighting, and you got this weenie. If I was Trump, I wouldn't meet with fake news. Why would you meet with fake news? What would be the purpose of meeting with fake news? It doesn't make any sense. We got people bloody, broken noses, beat up, and a congressman, almost the Speaker of the House, gets shot from a left lunatic that vote Democrat. Don't make any sense to me. God bless. Have an awesome day. Terrific Tuesday. In LA tomorrow. Hickson Autoplex. Here we come.